Welcome to Reframed Podcast. My name is Jason Blakey. I'm here with Kelly O'Mara, and this is part 2 of a little prayer conversation we've been having, as there's so much more to prayer than just praying memorized words.
Right, or on your knees at night, or at the dinner table, that recited typical prayer that everybody thinks of. Yeah, and there's so many different ways to do it, too. Like, in the last 2 weeks, I've done a couple of different things. I've done, the God, I just need to talk to you right now. I've done written prayers where I have a journal. I'm not very good at it. I looked, it was the last time I'd done it was 2020, and then I was oh, maybe I should do this again, because it does help me to just sit down and write out my prayer in a journal versus speaking it, because distractible. So if I'm writing it out, although the other night I was writing it out falling asleep, but that's okay. God's okay with that. But you write it out. But then this morning I was laying in bed after having woken up on the couch again at 5 a.m. and I went to bed for a 2-hour stretch. And before I fell asleep, somebody popped into my mind, and I just started praying for them. And then it was I only felt like I could pray a certain thing for them, which was really weird. So, there's just so many different ways that prayer can materialize as well. It gives you the option of, God gives us a lot of options to get things out and speak to him through it.
Yeah, I think it's more important that we have those conversations than
The method.
Yeah. And learn to listen, learn to have that two-way conversation. Because without the listening, I could talk at people all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can look at this camera and just speak. It doesn't mean I'm actually communicating or having any type of conversation.
Right.
But the fact that I would listen to what you're saying and respond, this is exactly how we can have this conversation with God.
Right.
And I think people miss that part. And if you really want a real fruitful relationship with God, you have to learn to listen.
Yeah, and I'm still learning that. That's something that sometimes I'm as guilty as I am of getting distracted. I can also be guilty of talk. Now I'm done, walk away. And not have my ears open to listening as much as I should.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm not sure there's anyone that's ever got to a point where they become perfect to listen to an unseen God. I think there's just a growth in that. I think you can get more aware, and you can get better at it with practice. But the reality is we need help. We need people around us. There's things that we're just going to not understand or not hear clearly. And so to have discernment, and it's really important. I had a kid, kid. It used to be a time where I was the same age, but
I know.
There was a young man that came up to me after service once, and it was just I heard something from God, but it really upset me, and I need some clarity. And he began sharing with me what he heard, and so I started asking questions and prompting. I was able to give some advice, and that should be the norm in the church, that people are I heard this. I'm not sure exactly what it means or how to take it. Here's how I took it. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And that should be pretty normal for us to have that conversation with people, and it not be scary or looked down upon or weird.
Right.
Right.
Or that you have, on the other side, just knowing that you can trust that other person to also listen to God, to give you the advice from God as well. I've had it both ways. I've gone to people who, and spoken to them about things, and when I got done, I didn't have a settled feeling. I thought, I don't think that advice was good. But on the other flip side, I've gone to people about things and said, this is what I think I heard. And when I left, I thought, yeah, no, I've been strengthened in that. So it's so hard. You do have to, having that relationship with people is really, really beneficial, but you also have to be very careful not to overshare with people who are not, I don't want to say it wrong. You just want to be careful not to overshare sometimes.
Not everyone has the gift of discernment.
There you go.
Yeah, so you have to go to those who have the gift
exactly.
of discernment. And many people claim to have it, but it's not, again, something that you just have from life experience, or um, it's not something that every Christian does get, because it is a gift of the Spirit, and so not all gifts are given to everyone.
Right.
So I usually try to find those whom I have seen and have seen active relationship with the Holy Spirit enough that they practice discernment in their own lives, and that's who I go to for advice.
Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. You want to make sure people who are listening listen well, but that's just it. I think the more important thing is we want people to pray, and we want to teach them that there is different ways. Bridgetown Church has a whole section on different types of prayer, and at the beginning of this year, the beginning of last year, our staff actually went through it together, and it was fascinating. We did everything from we actually prayed through the Lord's Prayer, which was very simple. We started with Our Father, and then unpacked what does it mean to pray to our Father, like who are we talking to, and then who art in heaven, we talk about his glory, and hallowed be thy name. We start praising his name. So we went down section by section all the way through this, and it took us several hours to really pray through the Lord's Prayer. Another time we did listening prayer, where we just listened and we didn't say anything unless we felt the Holy Spirit prompt. Another time we put someone in a chair in the middle of a circle and we just prayed the Holy Spirit to reveal to us how to pray for that person. And it was amazing. They threw me in the middle of the chair, right? And I'm like, this isn't going to work. I've got nothing to pray over. So I sat in the middle of this chair and people were listening. And all of a sudden people started praying things that I didn't know they needed to pray over. And they were speaking things into my life that I didn't know they needed to speak until I heard the words. I began weeping. Like, this is exactly what I've been dealing with. This is exactly what I needed to hear at this moment. Sometimes it was encouragement. Sometimes it was rebuke. And the Holy Spirit would speak to different people differently. And I'm like, this is crazy, but this is active prayer. Like, they were listening for the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit was speaking through them to me. And like, that still is prayer. All this is still communication with God and having a conversation with God. And it was really neat. And afterwards, they did say, because I didn't say anything during the whole process, but afterwards they said what landed and what didn't. And I was able to share with them kind of the things that really struck home and some of the things that really didn't at all. And that's okay, because that's part of the practice of learning to listen to God, is
Right.
not every prompting you feel is going to be you. It might be something you're making up yourself.
Right.
And it's weird, because as we did that more with the group, there are times that people would say, like, we would say something really random that would feel way off, and they're like, no, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And you're like, oh, I thought for sure that was just me.
I thought for sure I made that up.
That did not sound right.
Yeah.
But that's how the Holy Spirit speaks. Like, and then the more you learn to interact, the easier it is to operate like that.
And I just love the community aspect of that. There have been times in my life where I've been going through something and it was hard, only to, a week later find out that somebody at the exact moment that I was going through it felt God tell them to stop and just pray for me in that moment. And the encouragement that gave me, and the reminder that God was in it even if it didn't feel like it in the moment, there just is that special connection. There is just something about the church coming together and moving as the church of God for each other and for the community and for God. That having people pray over you and really seeking God for you, there's just something really special about that.
Yeah. And so, for a shameless plug, you're going to hear Pastor Rick talk more and more about these prayer groups, which will be part of our year pursuing God. And what we want to make of that is something like that. We want people to start engaging in prayer in new ways that they may have not done so before, but a way to seek God and engage with God that honestly might leave room for the gifts to be working in those small group settings, or for people to be able to speak out as the Holy Spirit reveals that. And a lot of that isn't appropriate in a large church setting, and so, but these are the settings for it. So that's what those prayer groups are going to be. There's going to be people, there's going to be times and opportunities for you to really just seek God together in new ways and learn how to pray in a way that's really following the Holy Spirit's lead. And so if you're interested in that, you can always email Pastor Jason at framework.church or Pastor Rick at framework.church and ask more about those prayer groups. As we're learning to pray, there's going to be other opportunities in church throughout this whole next year about prayer and how to engage in prayer. And we're actually going to take over some of our service times to do praise and worship mixed with prayer events, I would call them. But we're going to start calling them all church, where we come together to do that and then have some food afterwards. But we want to engage our church and teach them really how to pray. We want to be a church that's not like just a house of prayer. I don't really need us to declare ourselves a house of prayer, but I want to teach our church how to pray, and really how to have that two-way relationship with God. So that's really, if you want to take it from your head knowledge to your heart knowledge, prayer is the way to go.
Absolutely.
This probably isn't all we're going to talk about prayer.
No.
But for today, we're going to wrap it up. And
that's all we're ever going to say on the topic. No.
Prayer is now done.
Right.
We have said
covered
all
it.
knowledge.
Nothing else to discuss.
But thank you for tuning in. Check it out, Reframed Podcast. And hopefully we'll see you next time.